What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my review of the conference championship games this past weekend. It was an awesome weekend of games. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new to the channel, want to see more football and soon off-season content, just hit that big red subscribe button. Of course, the most important thing, join for a conversation down in the comments section. This was a couple of awesome games. I have so many thoughts on so many different areas of each contest. Love to talk about it all, but I'm going to try to keep this video relatively short. So if I missed anything, drop a comment down in the comment section. We can talk about the two games we saw this weekend. Let's jump right into it, talking about the AFC battle, Bengals Chiefs. Bengals on to the Super Bowl. If you had that ticket before the season began, congratulations, you're an ultimate champ for that one. But the Bengals make the comeback once again, down 21-3. I mean, the Joe Burr mantra continues to grow and grow and grow, and I kind of want to jump right into that second point. The Chiefs have an opportunity to either get a field goal right before half, or potentially get a touchdown, and they kind of just butcher a little bit of both. That pass ultimately goes to Tyreek Hill. I don't even know really what to call that play. End around screen, and he's obviously tackled in bounds. Clock goes to zeros. That's the end of the first half, and obviously that looms really large when you look at the entire game. But really, I think that's just because it's easy to point to a single play in a single moment and say, oh, well, that's where they lost it. They didn't score in the second half until they absolutely had to, and they almost messed that up, right? Like Mahomes retreating so far back, it goes from a goal-to-go situation to a 44-yard field goal, and on that final sack, he fumbles the football. Like, if not for Joe Thuney, this game doesn't go to OT. So the Chiefs' offense, it almost looks like this. It almost feels like this game feels like a microcosm or a proxy for what the Chiefs were this year, right? Get out to a big lead. They have some of these advantages, right? You have maybe the fastest man in the NFL at wide receiver, and he's a top 5 wide receiver at that. You still might have the best tight end in football in Travis Kelce. You have the most talented quarterback in the league, over a large sample size, over a 3-year period. Mahomes has been the guy. You have those advantages and those head starts, and it just feels like they're working against themselves. And especially in the second half, that frustration continued to mount. Felt reminiscent to what they were at in the middle of the season, except for when they played the Raiders. But when teams were giving them those too high looks and forced them to play underneath, they just didn't want to, and it would stymie them, and it would lead to frustration and turnover plays, and not a lot of points ultimately on the offensive side. And it felt like this game kind of represented that. And the Chiefs were simply, it almost looked like overthinking it. And ultimately that comes to fruition. They blow the big lead. This game goes to overtime. And then we get to the overtime discourse we could have. This game wasn't the same as last week, though. I have to preface that. The last 6 minutes of the Chiefs-Bills game, it was only offense. And it was evident in that game, whoever gets the ball first in OT is going to win this game. The second half was definitely not that, right? The Bengals offense was rolling, and they ultimately get the job done. And Shooter McPherson, that is such a tough name, and he embodies it. And this team is like all swag you almost, with Burrow, Chase, McPherson. That's unbelievable. But pivoting off of that point, the second half of the Chiefs offense does not mirror anything to what we saw a week ago against the Bills. So felt like the overtime situation here was a little different. And you know what, honestly, even after the Bengals got the field goal, I wouldn't have hated seeing the Chiefs try to respond, right? Season on the line. There's something about that, like backs against the wall. Can you make a play? Which side makes the play? That is the difference. But I understand both teams at least got to touch the football in this opportunity, in this game, once we got to OT. But man, what an awesome game. And, like I said, hats off to the Bengals defense. I mean, in the second half, they made all the right adjustments, and Jessie Bates continues to prove he is an elite safety in the NFL. I mean, that, volleyball tip, he gets the set assist, and then the pick is hauled in by Von Bell. It's just little plays like that really just highlight how good Jessie Bates is, and he does such a fantastic job not letting you have that big play. Like, as much as you want to take the top off the defense, Bates is so good and covers so much ground, it's just almost impossible, it feels like. So he was stellar, and I know the Bengals pass rush wasn't great in this game, but they came through in some big moments. Trey Hendrickson rolling and chasing Patrick Mahomes around so much so, after Mahomes ultimately gets back to the line of scrimmage, Hendrickson's running off to the sideline and trying to catch his breath. I mean, they exerted a ton of energy to get this win. And, I mean, this was as hard a fought win I've seen all year long. I can't really say enough about the Bengals. This was such an awesome story. And the fact this game played out so similar to the first time these two teams met, is a little staggering and a little bewildering. I do think the Chiefs defense made some pivots and some changes. You saw less pressure, and you never really saw 3rd and 27 type of play from Spags, and that's what I had anticipated coming in this game. Also, by the way, my score predictions for both these games really close, especially in the next one we'll get to here in a moment. But man, like I said, getting it done in Nashville and now in Arrowhead, the Bengals have earned this trip to the Super Bowl. And we're going to talk about with Stafford and Kupp. It's another game where you see Jamar Chase was getting doubled, but they were still finding ways for him to make big plays. And T. Higgins is a huge factor. Not a whole lot of Tyler Boyd, but he had some plays. And they also did this without C.J. Uzomah, right? So that's where you see Samaje Perine. If all be able to get that first touchdown, Samaje Perine would have been the last one I picked for the Bengals, but they just find a way. And, yeah, give them credit. Teams that figure it out as the game goes on, that'll be able to be a good tacticianist, that might be the most valuable asset or skill that a team could have. So, again, hats off to the Bengals. They earned this win. And to Joe Burrow, that legend continues to grow. And, I mean, the kid's owning it. So, give him a ton of credit there. And for the NFC game, I called Rams 21-17, so I'm actually kind of hyped that this game was as close as it was. And I have to get this out. I picked a bad day to wear this shirt. I'm not from Los Angeles, not a Los Angeles fan. I'm a Steelers fan. If you've been around the channel, you know that. But that said, I understood the Steelers were not going to be a Super Bowl contender unless Big Ben found a way to roll the clock back 5 years. So I've been rooting for the Rams for the majority of this year. And part of it's because Stafford is one of the first players I saw, when I was getting into the draft and really could understand college football, at least a somewhat nuanced level. Stafford was that guy at Georgia. I wanted the Lions to turn around. They were like one of those first rebuild projects I was hoping to see actually build into something. So I've always had a soft place in my heart for him. And then now he's in LA. And part of the reason I've been rooting for the Rams is because I'm afraid of what happens if the Rams, and now that they're in the Super Bowl, I feel like they kind of have to win it. But what happens if this experiment fails, right? You trade a couple of ones to go from Goff to Stafford. You give up a 2 and a 3 in season to get Von Miller, someone who's on the last year of his deal, in his 30s, regressing for the most part. What happens if this experiment fails? You're going to see teams retreat into a shell and not want to be aggressive and not go all in, put their chips in the center of the table and try to push for a Lombardi. But if the Rams win it and they come away with the trophy at the end of all this, then you're going to see teams say, hey, this is our year. We're in the final year of a window. We have got to do everything we can to come away with at least one ring. And by teams doing that, I think it just adds so much more intrigue and interest around the entire NFL. Like if Tennessee is calling up Seattle right now, right, and saying this works, right? It enables the opportunity and the thinking that Tannehill to Wilson is worth whatever it takes to get it. But if the Rams fall short, you're going to see teams like Tennessee and whoever say, okay, yeah, well, that didn't work, and I'd rather just keep my trade assets and be able to build in the future because I have my first rounders. So this whole year, long tangent aside, I've been really rooting for the Rams and hoping that this experiment works out because I think it would make for a more interesting NFL long term. So I am excited to see the Rams in the Super Bowl. But for the game itself, the pass catchers on both sides were awesome, right? Like Cooper Kupp was tremendous in this game. OBJ was a stellar. What a great addition, especially he signed the same week Robert Woods goes down. You really could not have found a better pathway for the Rams to combat that massive loss in this offense. And then on the other side, obviously Deebo Samuel is an absolute stud, both running and catching the football. He does it all, and he's one of the most dynamic athletes in the NFL. I've gushed over him for weeks now. But Brandon Ayuk against Darius Williams was an unfair matchup, advantage 49ers. Ayuk looked stellar. And, I was making jokes with my buddies during the game saying, man, I'm old enough to remember when Ayuk was in the doghouse and he just would not get any targets. He went like 3 weeks with one target or whatever, and the fantasy community freaking out. NFL, fans are like, well, this guy's uber talented. Is he on the trade block? What's going on there? And now he's among the most pivotal sequences and parts of this offense. So Ayuk was stellar in this game, and Darius Williams is no slouch. He's a good football player. Ayuk was making him not look like one, though. So pass catches for both sides were really stellar. Maybe Kittle was a little underwhelming. Tyler Higbee got a little banged up for the Rams, but the wide receivers in this game, top notch, and it was a lot of fun to watch those players go at it and hone in on our craft on as big a stage as it gets. Now pivoting, both teams kind of had some awkward game management moments, but man, Sean McVay, it almost felt like this dude wanted to lose or something. Not literally, I am kidding when I say that, but his use of timeouts and both challenges were so bewildering, especially the last one, right? It's now 4th and 2. The Niners are rolling out the punt team. It's clear they're ready to punt this away, which I think that's a spot Shanahan should have been going for, especially after McVay throws the challenge flag saying, no, that ball came out. Fox, for whatever reason, goes to a break. That was questionable decision-making in and of itself. Then they come back, and it is evident that this was 100% nowhere near a fumble. And basically, it set up a spot where after losing their last time out, burning that final challenge on a potential fumble. No, I don't know who's in his ear saying that they should challenge that, but that was obviously questionable. But what it then creates is a spot where less than 8 minutes to go, no timeouts, 4th and 2 in positive territory. I think that's a spot where Shanahan should be going for it, because if you get a first down, you're able to milk at least half that clock, almost assuredly milk half that clock. And it comes down to, you just drafted Trey Lance, man. Even if you don't think he's ready to be, the guy, take you to the Super Bowl, whatever. 4th and 2, that's got to be a QB power, right? Like, you got to pull a page out of the Carolina Panthers playbook and let the big, lumbersome, power-running quarterback get the job done. And since it's a QB power, you have an extra blocker on the play. All that just felt like it was lining up really easily. Obviously, the 49ers come to the line. They don't hike it. They just try to get the Rams jump. They end up punting anyways. And then everything else that played out does just that. Rest is history. Rams end up winning. But, man, some of the game management for McVay was really questionable. And I think that highlights, during this head coaching carousel, a lot of people want to get carried away with, okay, well, this guy's bringing this offense. And, he was a great play caller. And, this defensive scheme is perfect for, whatever. This is what happens if you're both the coordinator and the head coach. Sometimes it's game management and your challenges and burning through timeouts way too early. Like, imagine if the Rams were losing or continue to lose deeper and deeper into the fourth quarter, and they had no timeouts to be able to stop the 49ers, a potential last drive. San Francisco kicks the game-winning field goal. As clock runs out, they're headed to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. Like, that really was a possible outcome in this game, because not having those timeouts obviously was crucial. Didn't end up becoming a big deal because the Rams got the job done, but it definitely could have been a huge talking point had this game gone in a different direction. So now in the Super Bowl, McVay's game management has got to be a lot better. I mean, this is the biggest stage. There's not a whole lot of room for error, especially with a buzzsaw on the other side and Joe Burrow. So obviously really excited for the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that in the weeks to come. But yeah, that game management for McVay is going to have to be better in the big dance. And then, Jimmy G, this is going to be a really interesting offseason for him, because in one way you could look at this and say, he had the 49ers in the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. This guy just wins. And, that sentence is hard to disagree with. There is some correlation. He does win a lot, and therefore they did make it to the NFC Championship game twice in 3 years. Okay. And you look at some team situations where Taylor Heineke is not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. Mason Rudolph is not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. If trade situations get crazy and Matt Ryan's out of Atlanta, or Rodgers is out of Green Bay and they don't want to go to Jordan Love, or Russ is out of Seattle, whatever may happen this offseason, Jimmy G is an upgrade over certain quarterbacks. So there's going to be a market for him. Now, obviously, the contract is, like last year, he could have been cut and none of it was guaranteed, so he could have just been cut, saved $20+ million for the 49ers. We'll see how that, contract gets structured, and if he gets an extension, if he gets traded, all that sort of stuff. But, man, this game also just kind of highlights why having a Jimmy G is just not worth it, because, yeah, he might get you into the playoffs, and he might be an upgrade over a Mason Rudolph, a Taylor Heineke, a Trevor Siemian, whatever, an Andy Dalton. But that said, he's just not good enough to win these types of games. And all game long, he was skirting a dangerous path. He found Jalen Ramsey twice. And I mean, just imagine you're playing Cahoots, or you're taking a multiple, question test. And the question starts with, Jimmy G rolls out of the pocket with less than 6.5 minutes to go, running out of room, rolling towards the sideline on his right. A semi-cross-body throw sent to one person and one person only, and that person is Jalen Ramsey. No one around him, sees the football, breaks on it. Finish this sentence. There's the only option you're sprinting to take is Jalen Ramsey intercepts the pass. Like, it makes perfect sense. And more, I'd probably put money on it. Jalen Ramsey's good with the football in his hands. That's probably a house call the other direction. So somehow it becomes a drop. I don't know how Ramsey doesn't come up with that pick. And, it kind of equals out, right? Because Jaquiski Tartt, bless his heart, he's probably feeling like the sickest man in America right now. But that was a brutal drop. That was tough. So that and the Ramsey drop pick both kind of equal out. Each team got away with one, so to speak. But Jimmy G all game long was, he had a couple throws into double coverage, had a couple passes get batted at the line. He was, like I said, skirting a dangerous path. And again, you could look at this postseason and say, hey, took him to the NFC Championship game. He's the quarterback, plays most important position. He's one of the final 4 teams. Yeah, but then also you look at him, he was clearly the worst of the 4 quarterbacks still playing. He was maybe the worst among the bottom 2 or 3 quarterbacks that made the playoffs. He's not worse than Big Ben. I've got Jimmy G's a little bit above that where we are right now, but not a whole lot of separation between those two. And yeah, it's just this postseason, so many turnover-worthy plays. Felt like Kyle Shanahan was really having a backpack and scheme everything open and make the absolute perfect play call for the offense to keep moving the chains. And yeah, because of all that, this market for him is going to be really, really interesting, especially when you consider there are going to be teams that need a quarterback, but there's also going to be teams who understand, all right, well, keep Jimmy Garoppolo then and cut him. We'll sign him, and we won't have to give up any assets. Additionally, okay, don't cut him. What are you going to do with him and Trey Lance? Are you going to play them both, or are you just going to have them be an expensive backup quarterback? Like, teams that could be potential trade partners for San Francisco have a fair amount of leverage to make Jimmy G, and I don't know if he really fetches a first-round pick. I've seen that around in some mock drafts, and I'm like, really? He's just not as good as a quarterback that normally would garner a first-round pick, but then I'm thinking, okay, well, Carson Wentz, that became a first-round pick from Indy, so yeah, maybe. But then you see this game, and it's just, it's hard. But there's a premium at the position. So yeah, all that to say, I have no idea what teams are interested, what the market value looks like. Is there an extension in play? What does that look like? But all I know is I'm here for it. I'm excited to see what potential moves and things of that nature come to fruition this offseason. I'm excited for it. And it's going to be interesting, and obviously we'll have you covered here on this channel. But those are just some of my thoughts from this past weekend's action. I felt like I rambled a lot. Nothing made sense. Just let me know down in the comment section. Love to talk about this weekend's and its games with you down in the comment section. So comment away anything you want to add, anything you think I missed, any question, any debate you want to have. I'd love to have it with you down in the comment section. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, want to see more football content, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.